Brooks is supposed to talk about it, isn't he?
He will. When the action item comes open, he'll talk about it, and you'll be okay.
Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to presentations and reports. Number one, the mayor's report. We do have the ribbon cutting for the smoked taco tomorrow at 10:45 a.m., so we would invite you all to that. And also, just by way of information, there was some changes in the WACOG and WFRC committee assignments yesterday, and I am no longer on the active transportation committee for Wasatch Front Regional Council, but I have been added to the WACOG transportation subcommittee. So that hopefully will be a benefit to Riverdale. We can hopefully get some stuff that will help Riverdale through that. So I don't have anything else for the mayor's report. Anything from the city council on their assignments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to consent items. Number one, consideration to approve the meeting minutes from the December 17th council work session and council meeting. Any changes or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to consent item number 2, consideration to reappoint Councilor Bart Stevens to the Mosquito Abatement Board. Any discussion or any questions about that? Seeing none, we'd need a motion to approve that appointment.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously as well. Thank you. We will now move on to the action items. We are going to do our first action item, which is discussion and possible action regarding the senior center. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. When we last met on the 17th of December, I had indicated to you then that there was another meeting later that week. It was on the 20th with the Department of Human Services. And I planned on going to that, and I told you on that night that I'd give you an update. So that's kind of what this is. There's no, I can inform you what happened, but it wasn't good news for us, to be honest with you. It was kind of exactly how I thought it was going to go. We had a number of seniors showed up and voiced their opinion. They weren't even on the agenda. It was just like it was an open communication here too. So there wasn't a discussion item per se. Many of them spoke. I spoke myself because the board kept trying to throw it back at Riverdale, like we had any control over that funding, which we don't. So I addressed those issues in that meeting. It was ironic because of all those people that showed up, I think, not the very first one, but of the next 4 or 5 that spoke were not Riverdale residents, and they were all given where they were from, which was exactly the point we've been trying to make to Human Services, is that Riverdale has now become a county facility, not just a county facility, but a multi-county facility, because we have people coming from Morgan County and Davis County and Weber County, which is exactly what we've been telling them. But it just came across, at least my opinion of the whole thing was they've already made up their mind and they're not changing it. And because I thought the arguments that were made and the presentations that the seniors expressed to them were very valid and heartfelt. And we just really got kind of a cold shoulder was the impression I got. So I don't know where that goes. That's kind of why I put on there possible action, is because I need direction from the council what you want me to do at this point. We've exhausted that remedy. They've made their decision, and they're going to stick with the 4 senior centers, which excludes out Riverdale. The one thing that is kind of ironic is they keep bringing up that the excuse that, in particular, Michelle Jensen uses is that it was our location. Which is almost comical, to be honest with you, because of locations, ours is probably the best location, because you could go with 3 centers and ours would be the best of the 3, let alone even 4 and 5, not counting, our facility's huge, we have parking, we have better lunches, we have better everything, and they still just don't want to give it to us. So this parking or this location excuse is just an excuse. It's just there's no validity to it at all. But it was the day after Christmas, the 26th, an article came out in the Standard Examiner, and I think that was probably the most telling and truthful information we've gotten from Weber Human Services, because I don't think they've been truthful with us. They haven't. I don't think we've really even been in the game in this discussion this whole way. But in part of that interview, when he spoke with Michelle Jensen, she basically just came out, and this is the thing that bothers me so much, is because this wasn't part of the criteria anywhere when this whole thing started. But a wise man used to use this saying around here, is do the right thing for the right reason. And that was Larry Hansen. And he did that 25 years ago because he felt it was the right reason. And I think he was right. That's what's so ironic about this. I don't think he was right. I know he was right. Because if you look at our facility and what they've done in those 25 years, it doesn't even compare. The other ones aren't even close to us. Not just in our programs, but our meals and everything else that we have over there far exceeds anybody else's in the county. So by Larry doing what he did was the right call, because we weren't burdened by Weber Human Services. And they have not been able to keep up with what has happened in Riverdale. And I think there's some hostility there because of that, which is ironic. But she specifically said they did this. They did this 20 years ago, but it's been about 25 now, and referring to Riverdale deciding to go out on their own. And that's the reason they don't want to give us funding, because we chose to make the run on our own. But ironically, ours worked and theirs didn't. If you compare our lunches with their lunches, there is no comparison. If you compare our programs to their programs in the facilities, there's no comparison. And they're using that against us. If you read that article, and if any of you don't have it, let me know and I'll send it to you. But it's really clear that's what it is. That's what the reasoning is they're still ticked off at us because we didn't play the game back then. And she, as much as just admitted that that's what it was. So that's the real reason why they're denying this. It's not anything to do with what we've done or that we've done anything wrong. We've done everything right. But I think we make them look bad. And I'm not, bragging or anything. It's factual. All that is factual. But it is ironic that you got smaller facilities that can't even hold a candle to us are going to get funding. And that's what she said. Is that fair to them that we take funding away from them now and give it to Riverdale? I mean, what kind of logic is that? Are we doing the right thing for the right reason? They certainly aren't. That's ridiculous. If you're trying to take care of seniors, then we should have been the first one, and maybe even given full funding, not even a partial funding, but we didn't, and so that's what it is. So I guess at this point, I mean, we as a council and as a city, we have to decide what we're going to do. I mean, we can't keep shouldering the expenses of this. And that's what's ironic about it, is because of what this costs us, our citizens and our residents are shouldering this. And if you think about it too, all that funding that WHS receives, those are federal tax dollars that Riverdale citizens pay into. We are entitled to that as much as anybody is. And yet their wonderful logic and reasoning excludes us out because we chose to do it right. I don't know. I'm not happy about it, to be honest with you. I think it's ridiculous, but it is what it is, and I don't think it's coming from the full board of WHS, but there's certain individuals that just have a real axe to grind with Riverdale. And we sense that a lot in a lot of our dealings in many things, but I think it's just unfortunate that our senior program's getting hit because of it, because that's not right. And so we'll discuss some of these further in strategic planning and some other areas and stuff, but we've got to start considering what we're going to do, because at some point in time we're going to have to make some cuts and we're going to have to make some changes in how we proceed. We cannot continue to take care of Davis County residents and Morgan County residents and even all the ones we are from Weber County as much as we would like to. It's going to be tough. It's expensive. and they choose not to help us. So, whether or not that'll change, I don't know. We still have a contract for a year, and we're obligated to live up to that, and we will, and we'll continue to do that. But at some point in time, we've got to look at this a little more seriously. So, but that's where I'm at. Rich is here if you have any questions for him. I think he can back up everything I've said, and he's been involved in all this. And I mean, it's extremely frustrating to us because we pulled out everything we had to try and change their minds, and it got us nowhere, basically.
And so the council knows, we're still considering other options. Rich wrote a wonderful letter to Weber Human Services. I don't know if they got to see the copy of that or not, but he made a good point that we've never actually made before. It was so well thought out. I was just so impressed with it. But he went through all the things why we should be, and then he said, if location was an important part of it, why did you ever even include us? Why were we even an option if we were really never an option? Why did you even include us in the whole thing if location was going to cancel us out to begin with? Because we knew they just made that up. That was just a made-up criteria. I will let you know that, it is down the road a long ways, but I don't think it's done because West Haven has agreed to give money to Roy, and they're trying to get Hooper to agree to that. But I'm reaching out to people I know in those areas and letting them know, hey, you don't have to send your tax dollars to Roy. You can just keep your tax dollars in West Haven and send your residents to Riverdale. If we can get them to reach out to Weber Human Services and say, let's make Riverdale the site and give them the money and keep them going. And it's the same thing with South Ogden. They're giving $12,000 to the terrace. If South Ogden would just support Riverdale's center, which we get as many from South Ogden as the terrace gets, they wouldn't have to give $12,000 of their taxpayers' money to the terrace. Their residents could just come to Riverdale, which for a lot of them it's just as close as the terrace, and obviously it's a better facility. So I don't think it's completely down the road. I know if I lived in one of those cities and I knew that was going on, I'd say, why are we paying money to Roy when our people can just go to Riverdale? People do go to Riverdale, so why don't you come up to the mic, Rich?
I just get clarifying. Yeah. The contract at Weber Human Services, is that for a calendar year of 25, or will it end in June 30th of 25?
I think June.
So that contract we signed, it was effective July 1. It's our fiscal year, July 1, 24 to June 30th of 25.
So it'll end in 6 months.
Yes. And when we talked with Weber Human Services and they offered the funding for us for this 12 months, it was with the idea of working out a long-term multi-year partnership versus a 1 year at a time. We've been spending a lot of time, effort, and energy in trying to get to the table and trying to have those discussions. I don't know, my opinion, this is not, my opinion is they never really intended on a multi-year partnership, unfortunately. We've never really sat down and even talked terms with them. Which has been really disappointing. But for the last 6 months, we've been trying to get in that discussion, right? And I think at this point, Mayor made a really good point. It's not over, but maybe our time. Obviously, we're here and we're willing to talk, and I'm planning on attending their meetings. And if there is an opportunity to jump back in, that's great. But we might better spend our time for the duration of this contract in investigating other potential options. So, and in a strategic planning meeting, we can talk about this type of stuff, but there are some other funding mechanisms and approaches that we can possibly use to make up for that lost funding from Weber Human Services. The whole thing is really disappointing because, these federal tax dollars, and Steve laid it out pretty well, but we can't really control what Weber Human Services is going to do. And so that would be my thought. As a staff, we've really been talking about Weber Human Services dollars. And maybe we need to kind of change our direction a little bit, poke around, look at possible other options. At the completion of this contract, hopefully have something lined up and have a plan in place, right? And that's the goal.
Councilor Arnold.
I think we're funded though. We're not changing anything.
Right.
Riverdale's going to keep going for those of you that are here. We were just hoping that Weber County would help us with the costs, but everything's going to keep going. We're fully funded, I think. I don't know the exact numbers anymore of what they are, but there's over $1 million in the senior center fund. For
It's
the
in the
RDA.
RDA fund.
Yeah, because we're not going to have like the air conditioner go out and sink the ship, or as the mayor was talking about today. It's still going to keep going. It's just that we're trying to look for other avenues of funding to help. So, and we talked in the previous meeting. We have a planning meeting from 5:30 to 6 about how we put things on the agenda. Because one of the things that's kind of crazy about how it's on the agenda by saying it's a discussion of possible action is we can do anything with that. But, we don't want to send the populace in a frenzy every time the senior center gets on there, because Steve was just planning on doing an update from the meeting. And I said, well, how do we already know this information? And it was in the paper. So we read this information already. So it's not... nothing's on fire. There's no pitchforks and torches or anything. It's all just trying to work it out and make it. Hopefully, it's a long-term solution for what we're doing. Because it's in good shape, but some of the things we have to do. The apartments were initially set there to help run it, to help it fund itself, and it's become one of the things that's going to sink it. If the apartment rents aren't market value. So, that's one of the things that we definitely have to look at. But we probably won't do this. I hope we don't do this on the agenda like this anymore. Just talking about it in an open meeting. We have our strategic planning meeting in February and in May, and that's when you hypothesize what are we going to do to make this thing work and stuff. So. Nobody should be terribly excited about what's going on. You should be kind of let down of coming out for the evening and kind of a yawner.
Councilor Richter.
Yeah, two things. First, my compliments to the staff. We've seen your presentations. You guys have reported back, and I am very impressed with the presentation, the responses you guys gave to the questions, and so we echo your stunned response when you say that they didn't really consider us, because I'm not sure you could have done a better job in presenting Riverdale and its seniors and citizens and the benefits that we bring to this area. So that'd be one, and certainly echo a couple of different things. First off, looking at other funding sources and being open on that, as well as some accountability for those who have stewardship over public funds and taxpayer funds and where they're going. I think that there's opportunities there to hold and get some accountability there as well. So I appreciate the efforts and know that we're going to be moving forward to explore those other options. So appreciate that. Thank you.
And if I could just say more, I went out to the senior center that day of that meeting and stayed out there to answer questions and stuff, and met with a number of them. And again, it's almost surprising how many are non-residents, but they're all very positive. And I encourage them, and will continue to do this, that they need to be talking to their commissions and to their mayors and councils and letting them know that it's going to affect them. This decision is going to affect them potentially, and they need to be knocking on their doors saying, you guys need to be helping Riverdale out. And there were some of them that expressed some willingness to do that. So this fight's not over. I think we'll continue. I know we will, but where we'll get with it, I don't know. I really don't know. It's been a real eye-opener, I think, about how people look at Riverdale. And I think it's really unfortunate because it just doesn't seem like they're doing their job, to be honest with you. Not the way we do it here in Riverdale. And it's come back to bite us, but I'll stand by that any day. We still are going to do the right thing the right way.
Who's the commission? Who's the decision makers?
Well, they have a full board, and the 3 county commissioners sit on that board. But there's others. There's individuals. Bob Hunter. He's on that. I don't know a lot of them besides him and the 3 commissioners.
There's a commissioner from Morgan County, because it's a Weber Morgan board. So there's a commissioner from Morgan County that comes in and participates as well. I'm not sure which one, but only one. All three of the Weber County commissioners are part of that board.
You said Michelle Jensen?
She's not on the board,
Oh, okay.
but her and Kevin Eastman they're like the 1 and 2 of who runs it. They're the administrative part of it.
Because between Michelle and Kevin and Commissioner Harvey, we have like easy access ears to talk to those people. I don't understand
I
that.
think.
Michelle and Kevin, we don't have their ears.
Really?
Oh, not at all.
Or their support.
Nope, not at all.
At all.
Talk to you guys in the fire department. No, I'm just saying. Michelle just lives up the street from me.
Yeah, not at all.
Not at all.
Well, in the one meeting that they came here to meet with us to tell us that
That was
we
the
weren't
day
one of.
after our meeting on the 17th.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's right.
Yes.
We were walking into that thinking,
And one of the comments that was made to me was that, remember, before that, I had gone down and made that presentation with when we used those maps and showed those heat maps that showed where people were coming from so we could tell. That was thrown back in my face from her that I want you to know that that was turned over to our attorney. Like we had done something wrong. And it's like, that was just information. We were just making a point to tell you that Riverdale is getting bombarded from all over the
How many
county.
people went to each place?
Yeah.
where they were from.
That
our
bothered.
senior
That bothered.
center.
Yeah. And I was just kind of puzzled, like, why you would think you would want that information because they never reached out and asked anybody where people were coming from, and especially Riverdale, because they didn't want to know that information. But then when we gave it to them, apparently she turned that over to their attorney for some reason. I'm
I had
not
the
really
same
sure.
thought about Old Glory Days, but
But that's the reason why we got that software is because it provides data and it provides you with information that you don't otherwise have. And I think that was, yeah, and it's a legal thing. And I think that was very informative for everybody except for Weber Human Services. It wasn't. And they turned it over to their attorney, which he hasn't contacted me, but I don't think he's going to, but either way. But why would you even do that? I mean, to me, we should have known right then when they started that meeting off that way that they had no intentions of including Riverdale in this.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, well, hopefully our seniors know that we do care about them, and we're going to keep doing everything we can to keep this thing afloat. And I mean, it needs to benefit the Riverdale residents the most, and that's who these guys are elected to represent. And so there's a lot of things on the table, but please don't lose sleep that it's going to go away. I mean, it should be there for a long time and in some form. So
Just a real quick,
sorry, we can't.
the strategic planning meetings, will they be open to the public?
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
Will those be publicized?
yes.
When is that again?
There will be a
one-
couple of them. We'll have one sometime in February and then another one in probably May, somewhere in there.
like the Saturday by Mother's Day, I always miss it because I'm taking my mother-in-law to breakfast. And
There'll be a couple of them, so just keep an eye on stuff. They'll be
I'll
noticed.
let you know.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Mr. Brooks. We will now move on to one thing. One thing I will mention. One last thing about that is we did have a meeting with our state legislators for this area, Katie Hall and Jill Coford, and they were very interested for more information about this. They seemed to have kind of an open ear, and they were kind of frustrated as we told them what was going on. So I think they're having a meeting later tonight, and I would encourage anyone that can attend that to attend it.
If I could say more on that, in fairness to our county commissioners, that fund that they receive has not raised in, what they tell us, 25 years
yeah.
or something. They're still dealing with the same amount of money for the senior citizens as they were receiving back 25 or 30 years ago. So they're as frustrated, at least the commissioners are, because they're the ones that get the money and it's in their hands to distribute that. But
And it's federal money?
Yes.
And not,
It's
does it go
state, I
through the
believe.
state to get to us?
It goes through the state,
Okay.
and then the state passes it on to counties through their aging departments or whatever, and then it gets allocated. So cities are not allowed to directly grab that money. It has to go through from the feds to the state.
And so that's one of the reasons why we've been encouraging them also to reach out to your legislators, because it would be nice if that fund came up, because then there would be more money there to distribute amongst.
That would
whether
be
we
like a
got
federal
included or not.
legislator like Blake
Right,
Moore.
right.
Blake Moore would be a good contact to
Right.
ask for more federal money for seniors and aging. So
But you would also,
Or
I
your
mean, our
senators.
state legislators are gonna be what, I mean, if it comes into the state and then they go to the counties, the people you're gonna see tonight would be divvying up the pie.
yeah, yeah. And they're interested in helping. So, all right, let's move on to our next action item: consideration of resolution 2025-01, approving a contract with the Utah Military Academy. Chief Warren.
All right, Council. We brought this back to you guys about a year ago. As far as just let you know, we're going to move an officer into UMA as a resource officer. As part of that, there's a contract because they pay for part of the funding for that officer. It's a 3-year contract. We were able to get it signed last year, and we just failed to bring it back to get your guys' consent for the final approval once the contracts were all signed. So if there's any questions, I can answer those now if you have any.
Any questions for Chief Warren about that? Councilor Arnold.
Move to approve resolution 2025-01 as stated within the packet.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Halls?
Yes.
Counselor Richter?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Very good.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to the next action item, consideration of resolution 2025-02, approving an amendment to an agreement with America First Credit Union concerning work to be performed on the bridges located on 4400 South. Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. So as a reminder, in June of 24, you all passed Resolution 2024-22, which approved the betterment agreement between Riverdale City and America First Credit Union, which passed on the requirement to pay betterment costs for these bridges to America First. They had agreed to that. That amount was $1,651,825. That number came from UDOT to the city as an obligation to pay for the betterment of the bridges, which then was passed on to America First. We've since learned that back in August, as they go through and they refine the scope of the project and they refine their costs, they realized that there was a significant cost increase, about $555,000, that they brought to the city, and then the city then took it to America First. America First has agreed to include that into their responsibility for coverage, and so this amendment is simply just changing one provision in the cost reimbursement agreement with America First. Item number 2, section 2 of that agreement just changes the 1651825 number to reflect the current number, which is $2,206,993.50. There is also a small provision in there that says that if America First reimburses us and the actual cost that UDOT charges us is less, then we just refund them that difference. So no big change there.
Any questions for Mr. Cooper? Councilor Hanson.
It's not really a question. Just in the agreement and in the resolution, there's a discrepancy between the written amount and the number amount. It's showing 53 cents in every single spot versus the 50, which isn't a huge deal, but just to be sure that
Yeah.
we're approving the correct
We'll
amount.
correct the written is 53.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then the number's the 50.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it's not an expenditure for us, right? So even having this, I mean, to have the amount in there in the resolution, I mean, we really shouldn't even do that, should we?
Well, we probably should, to be safe, just for record-keeping purposes more than anything, and being able to track that. Yeah, it's not going to directly come out of our pocket, but it's going to be funneled through us, in essence. So, and I would note too, UDOT thinks that I'm being Debbie Downer here tonight, but UDOT thinks it's going to come in less than this amount. They were pretty upbeat about that, but I'll believe that when I see it. I've never seen those things come
We do
back
it not
less.
to
So.
exceed.
No, well, I just leave it at this amount because that's what they said. They felt pretty comfortable it's going to be this amount or less. So, but we'll make that adjustment. That'll be worked out with America First from our side. So, I mean, it'd be nice if it did. But in reality, I mean, some of that's going to come back because RDA funding is designed for infrastructure and things like that. This is one of those things that we would consider through some of that. So I think it's a win-win for all of us. We needed bigger bridges. That's bottom line. And we're going to get bigger bridges. So we wouldn't have without that assistance, and it would have come out of our pockets. So it's a good deal for all of us. But they'll also benefit as well. So.
Councilor Arnold.
I would make the motion to approve Resolution 2025-02 with the number stated, that Annie stated, Councilor Hanson stated,
Whichever the right one is.
The 53, if that was the written
53.
one, yeah.
Okay.
53 cents. Is it the 2,206,993 and 53 cents?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Hawes?
Yes.
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Richter?
Yes.
All right, that passes unanimously. Good. Hopefully, they'll be able to get started on that sooner than later. We have another action item, consideration to enter into a closed session pursuant to state law, Utah Code 52-4-205, 1D, to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, or to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation. I believe we have both of those items tonight, and so we would need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Ms. Maragoni, will you please poll the council?
Counselor Arnold?
Yes.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Counselor Richter?
Yes.
Counselor Hanson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawes?
All right, that passes unanimously, and we will go into closed session.
Did you need something?
I just wanted to ask a real quick question. Is this Michelle person in charge of the Meals on Wheels?
She's one of the supervisors down there. I don't know what her exact position is.
There's a conflict of interest on that.
Yeah.
Yeah?
And if you think the school lunches have a problem, let's get those facts.
True.